Like what you've built already is 1 of 1%. That's 0.01% of society. Like that's extraordinary.
Discipline. It was 100% discipline. And that was the biggest challenge. Is the first couple of weeks was that switch where like, hey, I don't have a supervisor. I don't have a boss that I'm under. And you need to force yourself. You need to make it a habit to wake up on time, to actually work, to stay on task. And it was something that...
Rejections that you have faced through your business venture, and how did you overcome them?
Crunching the numbers, and I'm like, just payroll next week. And it was a scary time, but it was once again the time where you take a step back, you take a deep breath, but then you just dive right back into it and you keep pushing.
How did you go about building a team at such a young age?
Yeah, it is a challenge, and yes, I am the youngest person out of a team of 10, and to this day, it's still, I hold myself accountable. It's more about them seeing that vision.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Suits and Shoes. And I'm so excited today to continue and share our journey, not only within 27 North, but my entire journey as a whole. As many of you know my story, and been privileged to immigrate here in 1999 from the war-torn country of Ukraine with nothing but 2 bags of clothing, and been able to build this empire and pursue the American dream. This country and God have been so good to us, and something that's really helped us grow over the years is strong mentors and stories of fellow entrepreneurs and business owners that have gone through a similar journey. And I just remember the famous words from world history that life's too short to learn on your own mistakes. So learn on the mistakes of others. And today I'm proud to share Daniel's story with you. And it's a unique one where it aligns with my story and how he just at 22 has been able to build a 7-figure business. So Daniel, what does it take to be Daniel?
Thank you, Paul, for the introduction. So I was born and raised in a family where both of my parents were working hard to provide for me, my 6 siblings. And even though out of high school, I was blessed with a comfortable job in the tech industry, it didn't suit me as enough to build something that could help my current family, the family I come from. And that's kind of what you said is at the age of 22, I was blessed by God and with some hard work to grow a marketing agency to 7 figures. Yeah.
So what helped you take that first step from leaving, a nice, comfortable corporate job? That's a big step into the unknown.
It is. And when people ask me like, hey, I'm thinking of quitting my job or I'm thinking of leaving a job nowadays, I always say if you have the opportunity to get started as almost like people say, as a side hustle and build it up at least a little bit to mitigate a little bit of that risk, then that's best. But for me, it was kind of I still remember when I was working, I had a little hallway when I'd come out of my office room, and that hallway was where I took all the calls with my clients for based agency already. So I'd be getting a call and it's like 1 p.m. and I'm like, man, I got to take this call and it's not from my job. So I'd step out into that hallway and do those calls. But I do remember like it was a little bit like when I noticed there was that conflict of, hey, I'm spending a lot of time working on the side thing. It started growing in revenue. I was like, now is the time to make the switch because I believe in, doing everything at 100%. Because if you're currently working at a job and you're stealing almost that company time and you're doing your own things, then in my opinion, that's when it's that time to make the step. And it'll always be a risk, but it's going to be, a risk that's well taken.
It's so interesting that you highlight that. I know many a times when, especially people that have comfortable jobs, but are so unhappy, ask me like, hey, how did you take that first step? How do I take that first step? I always break it down for them and say, what is hindering you from making that step of leaving your current or existing job and pursuing either another job or starting your own venture? And many times people will say fear of the risk. And I say, whoa. So do you text and drive? And like, well, I try not. I'm like, it's a yes or no question. Do you text and drive? And they'll be like, yes, we text and drive. I'm like, well, one of the top cell phone providing companies did a study that shows if you text and drive, you have like, I think it was like 50 or 60% chance of dying in a car accident, so causing a fatal car accident. Right. And I'm like, yeah, you risk your life every day. Why? Because you're used to it. And, I'm very against texting and driving, and I try not to do it myself. But, one of the reasons I bought a Tesla, but staying on course here, so many times in our life, we're already used to this risk. And the risk that we're not used to, we don't take. And the quote that I love dropping when talking on the subject is, the most amount of lost dreams, are found in the cemetery. Where they're buried. And so it's so important whenever we feel like God is calling us to, or situations in life align to where we have that opportunity. Like, it's not risking your life. Like, what's the worst thing that'll happen if it doesn't work out? You can bounce back into another corporate job or find another job. I mean, right now, unemployment's so low. It's like everyone's looking for quality people. 27north.com. Or jobs at 27 North, send your resume. We're always hiring, always looking for good people. So, apply. There's always a place to fall back in. And then if your business doesn't work out, okay, let's break it down even more. I had a group of friends visit from Canada, and they were like really hesitant whether or not they should open another business. And I'm like, what's the worst thing that'll happen? And like, well, the business work out. We got to, file bankruptcy. I'm like, all right, what's bankruptcy? And I go online and I print off the United States bankruptcy. It's like a 2-page application. I'm like, you fill out this application and it's a fresh start for you. Many of millionaires and billionaires have done it multiple times. Yeah, it sucks. It's definitely humbles you down, but it's not death. Why do we hinder ourselves from pursuing new opportunities? I want to start from your childhood. Not many have the success that you have. In fact, if you just do a basic Google search, you'll learn that you're one of 1% already. Like, what you've built already is one of 1%. That's 0.01% of society. Like, that's extraordinary. And I want to know what factors during your childhood shaped you into being able to, at such a young age, take such a big risk and pursue and have the opportunity that you have now.
Yeah. So I definitely think the biggest part about it is the environment you grow up in. So I had parents who were very strict with me. I was one of the childs that was definitely on the more rowdy side in terms of like even sometimes not listening to parents and breaking their trust. And they still always, they pointed me in the right direction when I would do something wrong. And they really focused on keeping me in church. So they would make me learn Bible verses and chapters, and I would actually go out in front of the whole church and say them. And it was those little things that shaped kind of my life going forward. It gave me that discipline. And the other part is school. So I was homeschooled all my life up until high school, actually. And for a lot of people, that almost right away comes as a jab, like, oh, you were homeschooled, right? But I would say for me, it actually really taught me independence. And it taught me a troubleshooting process of, hey, I have a question to something. Yeah. What's the process? What's the approach to find the answer? And troubleshooting is, as you know, basically the bulk of a day-to-day in the life of someone who's running an operation. So those combined with, the fact that my parents kept me in church and helped me establish a relationship with God, that's by far the biggest.
Yeah, right? That's because, so amazing.
As you grow up and in business, you are going to have moments when you're just like, man, you just want to like drop your hands. You just want to like forget about everything. But, that's when that relationship with God is the most important. Is if you have that relationship, you have someone to go to. And, if you have a strong family, and now I have my wife and a beautiful child, Diane, that my wife supports me in what I do. So, when I come home from a tough day at work, I know that I'm going to be greeted with love and support. Yeah. And that's huge as well.
That's inspiring that you accredit a large portion of your success to not only parents and what they did in shaping you to what you have today, but also the crucial role that your faith played in all of this. I know for us, growing up, if we wanted to go outside and play, we were required to read a chapter of Bible. And at one point, I think my dad caught on that we were like skimming. And so he made us go even further, and we had to by hand write a chapter of the Bible. And then we as kids, looking for the easy way out, we started Psalms. And then he caught on that we're doing Psalms, and he upped it to 3. And that number 3 has been so powerful because to this day, 20 years later, I'm still doing 3 chapters of the Bible per day. And it's shaped the leader that I am today, and honestly lays that foundation for overcoming those obstacles and challenges that life throws at us. Something that parents often ask is, well, what do you do in that moment or phase where the child doesn't want to listen? So what do you feel like helped in your life when you had that season of where you were maybe, quote unquote, a little rebellious, as we all, or most of us were? What do you feel like your parents did right or did wrong that helped you through that phase in your life?
So it started a lot earlier. It started the way they shaped before I was even at that rebellious stage, to be honest, because like I said, they really focused on pushing me to church. And when I was around 10 years old, I was already doing like AV, audio visual for a church. So I was in the sound booth, moving the knobs. And that's a whole nother story of how I was very persistent. And like I started by for months just carrying the microphones from the stage after church. They wouldn't ask me. And I know they hated doing that. So I would always do it for them.
Wow,
and then,
you just volunteer and do it. Wow.
Because I knew that's my in with them.
That's awesome.
So at the age of 10, I was already part of that team.
Yeah.
And so later on around, 11, 12, 13, when you would have those moments, my parents, it was actually, now that I look back, it's almost funny, but they would threaten, or, they would say like, if I'd get in trouble, they wouldn't say, oh, you can't go outside and play. They would say, you're not going to go to the AV room.
Oh, wow.
You're not going to be on schedule. You're going to sit by me in church. And that to me was the most scariest punishment ever. So that's basically, and they all didn't end up going through with it. Yeah. And we'd find a way out, but that for sure kept me in line because it was like my passion.
Yeah, it's almost like a positive reinforcement.
It is, yes.
I remember interviewing my dad on this very podcast, and he said he would have a brother who loved doing the dishes, and he would tell my brother, "You can't do the dishes."
Wow.
And that was worse than any form of discipline.
I think any parents would love for that kind of child.
So fast forward to you're sitting in your office working your awesome corporate IT job, and you have the idea of, okay, I'm going to start my own business. You walk out, you start your own business. What was the biggest challenge or challenges that you had to overcome day one?
Discipline. It was 100% discipline. And like I mentioned a little bit earlier, being homeschooled, it taught me a lot of independence because you wouldn't have a teacher by your side to answer questions at all times. But so I thought that I was set up, and I was like, I know I have a good independent structure. I'm driven, I'm not a lazy person. Yeah. So I'll be good. And I remember, I know it was January of 2022. So the end of December is when I quit my job. I put in my 2 weeks. And so January 1st is, bam, I'm starting full-time in my business. And so January 1st comes around, and what's January 1st? It's a holiday, right? So, we're like spending time with family, and I'm kind of telling Sophie, hey, we're, obviously it's still a holiday. So that goes 1-2 days. And I remember after that, I get sick. So now I'm bedridden for about a week. It was one of the worst flus that I've had. Yeah. And so now a week passes and I'm ready. I'm like, okay, I'm ready to start. Yeah. But I'm like, I wake up and it's like 9:30 a.m. It's not that early. And I'm like, hold on, I'm already off to a bad start. I'm not waking up on time. It's hard to wake up. And at that time, I didn't have an office. You know where my office was? It was a corner in my room with just a standing desk, a laptop.
There you go.
I'm like, okay, I'm getting up, I'm going to work. I'm working. It's, it's 8 a.m. I look behind and my wife is right there in bed and it's so comfortable. I remember. So that was the biggest challenge. The first couple of weeks was that switch where like, hey, I don't have a supervisor. I don't have a boss that I'm under. And you need to force yourself. You need to make it a habit to wake up on time, to actually work, to stay on task. And it was something that I for sure I underestimated going into it, even though, like I said, I thought I had it all planned out and had that drive and the habit set up already.
Yeah. What about rejection? I know rejection is something that not many people openly talk about. I've actually wanted to start my own social media platform where the only thing you can post is your failures, challenges, rejections, hard moments of your life. So you can't post any good, flashy, bougie resort selfies, only challenges, to kind of inspire people to like, hey, our Instagrams are so biased. Even mine, I keep getting on my team, guys, post more raw content. Like, I'm so tired of people coming up and saying, wow, your life is perfect. I'm like, whoa, are we talking about like, oh yeah, we follow you on Instagram for the last 2 years.
Right.
And I'm like telling my team, like, post some of the raw stuff, some of the raw emotion. And so rejection, I was blessed where early on when I started my business, I couldn't keep up with it. I had to turn jobs down in a way, but there did come a time when our industry hit a lull and a really downward spiral. And I probably had 3-4 months of rejection after rejection after rejection. And I think it was finally when I reached a point, I'm like, all right, I can't do this anymore. It was over 20 consecutive rejections. It really started getting to my mind. And I'm like, all right, I got to go to my war room. And I go and I pray. And I'm like, Lord, I need your guidance. I need your wisdom. And I just had this idea of, why am I trying to do this on my own? And I was able to hire a key candidate. And his first phone call, he got us a really good multi-million-dollar contract. I'm like, why didn't I do that in the beginning? And so now, anytime someone asks me advice on how to scale a business, I'm like, you don't. Go hire someone. And the example I love giving is, imagine if you were going to play professional football right now, and you had to compete in the NFL. What would your first move be? And I'm still marvel how many people said we would train our team. And I'm like, what team? You have no team. Go draft, go recruit. Yeah. What have been some of the rejections that you have faced through your business venture, and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, that's a great question. And for me, I remember it was one of my first clients, and I am very blessed in the opportunity that who I work with are oftentimes business owners, right? So those are the people who have been through a lot of that through thick and thin. And I remember one of these first clients, he told me, and I thought, when we landed them as a company, they had 50 or 60 trucks, multi-million-dollar operation that they're running. And I was like, man, these guys are successful. It's awesome that we landed them. We're able to help them grow even more. And I remember the owner was telling me, he's like, Daniel, about a year ago, I had the moment where I just wanted to quit. It was so tough. I wasn't sure if we'd be able to even run payroll for some of our workers. Wow. And he's like, there comes a point in business where you have to take a step back, look at it, and you have to just dive in again. And you have to keep pushing through and persevering. And to me, I'm like, man, a year ago, this guy was still huge. How is he saying this, right? And to me, that was a shock. And I was like, I don't think, and that was when, we were landing client after client. I'm like, I don't see that happening. Yeah. And then it happened. So it happened. And I remember, this stuff is clear in your mind. It never goes away. When we had a month where we work on a recurring basis with most of our clients, so month to month, and we're big on attribution. So we don't put them into any long-term contracts, right? Yeah. So we had this 1 month where we had around, at the time, 3 clients that were larger month-to-month clients with us. And all 3 of them, in that 1 month, one of them was selling the business. The other one was going into the commercial space, so they didn't need marketing. And the third one, there was some miscommunication. They were just taking a step back and wanting to try something new. And I remember crunching the numbers, and I'm like, uh-oh, exactly. That's the simplest way to put it. I'm like, guys, I have it, because, you build up your team slowly once you start getting more of these clients. I'm like, I had that same exact thought. I'm like, am I even going to be able to process payroll next week? And it was a scary time, but it was once again the time where you take a step back, you take a deep breath, but then you just dive right back into it and you keep pushing. Yeah. So, for us, one key thing that I've been told by even the sales director we hired last year is, you need to, you provide a good product, and you have to have the mindset behind that. Yeah. So he's like, that the service you provide is going to help these businesses grow. So act like that. He's like, if you ever even have a client that sometimes potentially is like, we're thinking of maybe trying to work with another company or doing this, and not having the attitude of like, okay, like, let's see where we could lower maybe your cost with us, or maybe we could add more services. What we say is, we're like, we're happy for you. Of course, we talk through communication if there is something on our behalf that was wrong. But at the end of the day, we have the mindset of, okay, we're only work with one company like yours in your area. So once you leave us, we have like a whole list of people that would love to work with us once you leave us, right? So having that mentality of, hey, I know what I do provides a good service. We do a really good job at it. Then it will be harder to run into situations where you feel like you can't go further, or you have to give up. And that's been, we've seen that as testament, even with some of our clients that left us. They were like, oh, we're going to work with this company because they're more in this industry and they will do better. And then we have them after a couple months coming back to us. And we never treat it as a like, oh, here you are. We treat it as a, hey, you tried something. As a business owner, I try things, right? So we treat it as that, and then we start working with them again. So that's, I think, overcoming those lows. For me, you kind of pause, you take a bird's eye look, you pray about it, you could fast about it, and consult. What you said is very important, and it's something you see the biggest brands and influencers like Mr. Beast. He had his employee handbook leaked on Twitter, and I read through that handbook, and it said consulting is a cheat code. Literally word for word, consulting is a cheat code, because he's like, if you are starting a business, there are probably thousands of people who started that same exact business you are starting, right? You have competition. And he's like, if you have somebody that already went through a lot of the challenges and mistakes, you have a pathway of, hey, we're going to avoid these mistakes, right? And you're going to create your own mistakes. But what happens every time you make your own mistake? You make SOP about it. You're like, okay, this happened, so this is the way we should approach things from now on. But if you have a list of people who already had that proven track record, it's huge, because those are things you could already avoid and look out for. You know, so I'm a big believer in that as well.
Yeah, that's so powerful. I love how in the NBA, oftentimes players and coaches will say you have to visualize the ball going through the hoop and you making that shot before you ever actually make it. And that's been kind of a pillar in my ventures. Anytime I do a big deal or I make a big hire, a big purchase, if I can't visualize myself going through with it and it succeeding, I don't take that step, because I know for a fact, if I'm already doubting it, if I already am questioning it, even if it works out, it won't work out to the fullest extent, and I'll still have that consumer remorse mentality. And every time I do come across a challenge or rejection, I do have to take a step back, visualize me making that shot, that decision, it panning out, and then I put in the work to do it. We had a really good conversation last night, and we talked about X, formerly known as Twitter, and you gave me this awesome idea, and I did my own version of it this morning right away. It got some of the most engagement and interaction of any one of my X posts.
Wow, awesome.
And so I wanted you to share that for our listeners to hear how important it is to take a unique approach to every social media platform, depending on the mission, the vision for it. But yes, X, how do you get an X account jump started?
First off, I'm very pleased to hear that, and it's something that, like I was yesterday saying, I'm like, man, all these guys that are under this amount or in this range of followers, they're doing this, and it's helping them grow quickly. Yeah. But with X, what I notice is it's all about current events, so things that are currently happening out in the world. That's why if a big event or something is happening, you'll see everybody tweet about it, even though they're, it's some IT person or somebody in the manufacturing space. But once this happens, everybody's, including those people, are tweeting about it. Yeah. The other big thing is what I mentioned is resources. So resource-based marketing or content-based marketing, that's actually the mission of my agency, is to provide as much resources and as much free information as we can, because that's doing a couple of things. That's giving us social proof. Yeah. That's giving you that's giving you, basically, it's making your, you look more experienced in your field, and making you look like, or showing that you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And so like with X, what we see and what we tell our clients to do is, if you're looking to grow your account, if you're, for example, in the space where you are a someone who provides mentorship or coaching, you could say, hey, this is closed down for a group that pays, $10,000 a month or $15,000 a month. And just for today, we're giving out this resource of how to make your first cold call, or how to establish a better directory for your business finances. And all you have to do is just retweet this, comment under the post, and we'll send it to you. We'll send a link to this for free. And that's, once again, that's that content and resource-based marketing. So if you provide that, that shows people that, like, once they look at it, like, man, this is so good. And he just gave this to us. How much more information does he have stored behind, that paywall of his? And it entices people. And in the long run, the way I see it is, like, for us right now, we're building on our website a ton of SOPs. So if you're looking to do a social media audit, a website audit, if you want to take the first steps even to build your own website, do it on your own, we're providing the resources for that. And I talk with some marketing people in the space, and they're like, why are you doing this? Why are you giving the SOPs, the procedures that your team is using day to day? Why are you putting it on your website? They're literally saying, what's wrong with you? And what I'm saying is, like, hey, these are people who, they might be someone that's just starting out. They may be starting a construction company. They don't know where to get started. They don't know what to do. And of course, they're not going to hire an agency at this time because they don't have the budget for it. So they look through that SOP. They maybe build their own website. They do an audit. They start their own socials. And I'm like, who do you think is going to be the first person they ring once they have a crew and once they have more budget and want to push further? It's going to be us, because you already established that social proof and that connection with that person. So that's what I'm a huge believer in.
Yeah, I second that. A lot of times I get so much pushback, especially from the Slavic community, of, why are you sharing all these? Don't teach that. Why are you sharing all this information? Why are you sharing all this knowledge? I'm like, guys, this is not like some insider trade secrets. Like, first of all, this is public knowledge. Just Google it. Second of all, why would I not share something that shaped me into the success that I'm having now with the world? And not only to glorify God and my Savior Christ in my life, but just in general to help other people. That's why I started my coaching program. I actually was against, and to a large extent still am against, all these coaching courses, because it's like a big explosion and then nothing, and then half of it is a fake anyways. And I really didn't want to start it. And a friend of mine short of pressured me into starting it, because there are genuine business owners out there that really need help. And being able to come in and do what I've already been doing for years, but more channeled and more allocated, and helping people succeed, it just is so extraordinary. And after seeing that success, I'm like, all right, we're posting everything online. And we just started all my training videos that I've been doing for my members, just posting them and seeing the overwhelming positive feedback on how much is changing people's lives. I wish more successful business owners did this. Too many times I meet these successful people that do minimal to no posting online. I'm like, guys, you in close circles talk negative things about the younger generation, how there's no hope for them, yet you're not doing anything to try and shape them. Like you're taking a life's worth of knowledge to the grave. Why not write it in a book? You can afford a ghostwriter, hire a ghostwriter, write a book about it. What does it take you to pay a local videographer $1,000, $5,000 to videotape a few hours of you just sharing all the wealth of knowledge you've accumulated, what's helped you reach 100 million, what's helped you reach $1 billion, and just share it with the world. Let universities use it, repurpose it. Why are we being so stingy with the knowledge that we have?
And you brought up a good point earlier, where in our communities, because it is a thing where, like, someone comes and he starts working in trade, for example, laying tile, and he's there for 6 months, just like looking at the owner's like, he's putting that square that way. He lines it up on the grout this way. And 6 months later, he's doing it on his own. He's like, hey, now I'm starting you're a style. It's starting today. And the first people I'm calling are the clients that my boss worked with. I really disagree with that. And I think it's I heard a reel, it was of a pastor speaking about this. And he said, he's like, you learned under this person. He taught you the trade that you're good at. And he's like, you're free to start your own business. He's like, of course you are. And he's like, that's encouraged to do. We live obviously in America where we're building our dreams. But he's like, go start your business and go get your clients and do good work. He's like, the people who start by calling their old bosses customers and like, hey, I'll do it for half the price. He's like, how is that a proper way to start your business that's going to benefit you, you know? And from the other perspective, I was talking with Tim, who's actually here in Missouri as well. And he mentioned, he's like, as Ukrainians and as not even just as business owners, we're gatekeepers oftentimes, or like we have it in us to like the worker that we hire or someone that we start working with, we don't want to give them all the information that we have, or we don't want to share the knowledge we have with them. And he's like, don't do that. Share them and build into them everything you can. And you know, people are like, well, he might leave me if I do that. He might become smarter than me. But he's like, he's like, if you have workers that are on the same level as you, it pushes you to constantly grow and evolve and become better yourself as an owner. And I thought about that, and that kind of changed my perspective of like, hey, you know, of course you might, and you will have people who potentially leave, you know, after you pour knowledge and what you have into them. But that's okay. You know, you're setting them up. And if you have the proper work environment as well, not just from people think it's all about money, but if you have a good environment, you have a good company culture, then they won't be leaving you. You know, they'll be happy with where they're at, and they will be very appreciative for the knowledge that you pour into them. So I think it's huge.
Whenever I talk to someone that doesn't understand that concept, I make them the analogy to getting fit. Like, what does it take to have a six-pack? You know, eat healthy, do sit-ups. You can draw up a little fitness thing. You can post that. You can share that with your friends and family. How many people are actually going to do it? And of those that do it, how many are going to see it through? It's even harder in business. I truly believe it is easier to get super fit. We're talking Schwarzenegger fit than it is to build a successful business and company. I genuinely believe it is easier to get Schwarzenegger fit than building your own multi-million-dollar successful company. I personally support all my employees, and hey, if you want to, I will personally help you build your business. I probably, if I had to guess, more than half my competitors right now, I'm constantly helping. I'm sending them new tools that we find. I'm sending them new parts that we find. I'm sending them reports that I spend thousands of dollars on. I share with them industry knowledge. I share with them where I think the industry is going. I share with them my vision of where I think the industry should go. And it's such a collaborative spirit. It's like when tides rise, all ships rise together. But unfortunately, there are those every now and then an employee that thinks they can go behind your back and do something. And, you know, for the longest time, I kind of turned the other cheek mentality, but then it got to the point where my team's like, Paul, people are just taking, you know, advantage of you. And so now, unfortunately we do have some ironclad contracts, some very powerful attorneys. And the very few times that it did happen in my life, it was handled and addressed very seriously. And now it's so funny, whenever we onboard another manager, someone that's going to work directly with me, they get like a kind of a rundown like, hey, Pavel's probably the nicest, most strict guy you'll ever meet. He's very entrepreneurial. He'll inspire you to pursue your dreams. And if you ever come to the point where you want to pursue your dreams, be open and honest about it. He'll help you with it. He'll invest in you. He'll give you the introductions. But if you don't, be prepared for some of the nastiest lawsuits you'll ever experience. Like just full transparency. He wants to help you. He wants to support you. But we have to look out for his best interests. And if you're not going to do it the right way, and you're going to go behind his back and affect his business, tank his reputation, it's going to have really negative outcomes on you, your life. Don't do that. You know, just be a good person. If you want to start your own business, do it the right way. You don't have to worry about lawsuits. You don't have to worry about, you know, being caught up in a courthouse when you can have his full support in pursuing your venture, pursuing your dream. I really believe that in large part, most business owners are like that. I've interviewed hundreds and I've met thousands of business owners. And I don't remember a single time a fellow business owner or CEO telling me, hey, I can't share. I don't want to talk to you about that. No, it's like never happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in my life, I love asking for help. I genuinely believe that what you said, consulting, I call it mentorship, is the ultimate life hack. And in my life, it only happened one time when I asked a business owner for advice and he said, no, I'm going to run you out of town. You know what I did? I went and got him a gift basket, another gift basket. And within a year, he was helping me, sending me jobs, and was like an ultimate blessing to me when I was just starting my business.
Yeah.
And it's like, how do we handle ourselves in those situations? Have we ever asked our bosses? I remember one of my other favorite ones was when I left the construction space and started my RV journey. I told my boss, who was in love with my work, and we still have a really good relationship. And I'll never forget his words. He's like, Pavel, I love that you're pursuing this. I'm going to help you. And if it doesn't work out, you can always come back and work with me. To this day, he's came to our grand opening events. He's supported me on social media. We text back and forth. He's given me some good advice throughout the process. And it's like, why are we in this? For the Slavic people, I call it the Soviet Mayan era thinking. For Americans, I call it the coal mine era thinking. Every culture kind of has its own era.
Right.
We got to break those ceilings. We got to break those barriers. We got to break that bloodline and just understand that in general, people are willing to help. If we're good, genuine people and we're surrounded by good, genuine people, they're going to help us. And at the end of the day, if your venture doesn't work out and you left on good terms and you didn't do any negative or bad things, it'll work out for the best for you, because you can come back and they'll give you a job. And it doesn't send you, radically speaking, into a homeless situation in your life. And then just the depression within, I've met one too many business owners that have done it the wrong way, whether it's at a conference or just, at a networking event. And they're just so sad and depressed and nothing's working out. And I just ask, on what terms did you leave your employer? And they'll share this horror story of how they went behind his back, stole a contract, it didn't work out, it failed. I'm like,
and that's how you started your business. Yeah. Especially with our circles being faith-based, if you're starting your business off the foot of poaching or feeding off the food that's on your old boss's table, how do you expect God to bless that business in the long run? And relationships is huge. I also, to this day, the last supervisor in my IT job that I was working at, I still keep in touch with him to this day. We go get lunch. He's a very wise person. I told him, and I remember the interview for that job where he told me to my face, he asked the question, he's like, every single person I interviewed for this job has a bachelor's degree in computer science, I believe. Yeah. And he's like, you're the first person that has zero college experience. Why should I hire you over them? Yeah. And I'm like, because I have a passion for it. And I just answered in that simple way. And after he hired me, he told me, he's like, I already knew the answer. Before you told me that you have a passion for it, I saw when you were sitting there and the way you answered the questions and the way you talked about how you troubleshoot and approach things. Yeah. I saw you have a passion for the tech role. And to this day, I've asked him for advice on how to interview candidates, how to see through the questions that you ask and see the true character come out, see if they have discipline, see if they have the drive, if they have that passion. Yeah. So relationships are big because, like you said, that is a thing that I have noticed as well. If they left their employers to jump into a business with horror stories like the point where they were working long hours, but they were working long hours for their business and stealing their company's times. Yeah. Oftentimes you see that reflect in the long run. Building off of that, you're only 22 years old and you're going to have a pretty big team. I think combined between the contractors that you use and the people that work for you. I mean, I have the number here. I don't know if I'm supposed to disclose it or not, but anyways, how do you build the team? How do you attract people? I mean, you're 22. I know for me, I was 24 going to 25 and I would tell people, I'd round up. My grandma told me that you're not the age you are now because that birthday already passed. Yeah. And so I always round up. So when I was 20, I'm 29 right now. I'm like, I'm knocking on the door 30 or I'm 30, just rounding up. You're one of the first. Everybody's usually trying to round that down. Yeah. So I can imagine the challenges you face at such a young age, having a team, and if I had to guess, a lot, if not all of them, are older than you. So how did you go about building a team at such a young age? Yeah, it is a challenge, and yes, I am I am the youngest person out of a team of 10 at the moment. I am the youngest person in the company. And it's the challenge for us is what I mentioned earlier, company culture.
Yeah.
With the fact that most of them are working remotely, because since we're looking for talent, it's pretty tough to find it just in one city.
Right.
Finding when I have a worker that's sending me a message and saying, hey, like, I almost feel kind of depressed at times because he's like, I'm so alone. I feel like I got this message early on in my company, and that made me change everything. Yeah. And I'm like, these are people. They have, I know they are people and we treat them as, but I'm like, these people have, they have emotions, and they could get lonely working, 8 hours sitting behind a computer doing a task, and they don't feel that team presence because they're remote. Yeah. So for us, and to this day, it's still, I hold myself accountable to trying to have that as a first priority of building that company culture. Right. And I'm blessed to where our workers are also they're faithful, and they have principles of faith. So, when we do a team meeting and we talk about the weekend, a lot of them are like, oh, I was, leading worship at our church, or I was doing awesome. This. And it's pleasing to hear, and it brings that sense of community. But yeah, the recruitment part, it was, it's a lot about seeing through the questions you ask, So like when I conduct interviews, I'm asking one thing, but I really want to see, it's not like a technical thing where like you need this specific answer. It's more of like, I want to see this person's emotions, his passion shine through this interview. Yeah. And I noticed that, those who have discipline, you will see that. Yeah. If they have a discipline, if they have a drive, they have a passion. And once you hire those people, they're going to want to build a business with you. And if you, as a business owner and as a leader, if you inspire them, so like as they work with you, they're inspired, not just they're doing the tasks and they're getting pay raises every 6 months. It's more about them seeing that vision. When I get on a call with them and I'm raw with them and I'm saying, hey, here's the list of my goals for every quarter of this year, at the end of last year, we had that meeting, and I'm like, I know I'm struggling in this place. This is where I'm going to try to work on. And them seeing that, it inspires them because they see almost the behind of the scenes of how this company is trying to grow, how this company is growing, how it's structured, the approach. And it goes back to the gatekeeping part. Yeah. If you don't gatekeep, you show them the behind the scenes of, hey, last year, this and this month, we kind of struggled in terms of, and this is why. Yeah. Here's what we're going to do this year to fix it. When they see that raw authenticity, it brings the team together. And even if they are remote, so, in cases where you have remote workers, if you take that approach, they will feel that community. And it'll feel like you're all working in one office. Yeah,
it's intriguing that you highlight, your approach to it. It seems like not only employee management is so ever changing. You got remote, you got working and I noticed that business strategies, more so marketing, is evolving and changing at the same rate, if not faster, than employee management. What do you feel like your outlook is for 2025 this year? What do you see as a successful strategy for this year?
From like a business marketing perspective?
Yeah, let's start with business marketing, and then I also want to talk about personal branding. And
Sure.
So yeah, let's start from a business.
So from a business perspective, social media is ever growing. There's more and more people on there, but it's the raw aspect that people want. They want the real, they want the behind the scenes look at your company, what you're doing. If you have a company page and you only have videos that are selling your service or product, and there is nothing about your employees, there's nothing about the behind the scenes of the work you do, you're never going to grow on the social medias. And I always say you need to have at least 80% either informative or entertaining content, and only 20%, and even better if it's 90 to 10 of actual commercial content on your page. Wow. And if you look at the companies that are doing very well, you look at companies such as, in Kentucky, it's a very funky and bold name, Big Ass Fans. Yeah. If you look at their strategy, and if you look at Duolingo and their strategy, if you look at some of these companies and how they approach social media, They approach it from the entertainment perspective and informational perspective, and they get crazy engagement. Whereas you have some huge big box companies, even like huge automotive companies like BMW USA and such, where they're just showing like, this is our new model, this is our new car, buy this, we have 0% financing on
a nice cinematic Hollywood $1 million.
Yes, yeah. And sometimes it's those videos that are polarizing because you're like, man, this is a company with huge budgets.
Yeah.
But they just shot this video like on an iPhone. It was just a guy talking behind the camera. And that's the stuff that works. It's once again, that raw and authentic. So for companies this year, if you want to focus more on the social media side of the strategy, that's huge. I think showing that raw and authentic company.
Yeah, I've noticed the videos that we've done. It's like YouTube and iPhone have a backroom deal. That'd be a cool thumbnail. YouTube and Google backroom deal. Film on an iPhone, walkthrough video, boom, 20,000 views, 24 hours, which is crazy numbers for us. Usually we get less than 100 views.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, you probably should work with you on growing our YouTube. And then we will hire a film crew, pay $20,000 on a nice cinematic video and a couple hundred views.
Yeah.
And I always tell my team, that's the value of raw, authentic, non-scripted, just let the camera raw. I love how Dan Martell from Canada always says, just look in your phone and start talking. Like just start, that'll work. So transitioning to personal brand, how do you see someone starting off or wanting to scale their personal brand? What is the secret hack for 2025?
I think it bleeds the same thing of having the authenticity and the raw self, where the videos you're shooting, they're showcasing the lows, not just the highs of your business. And that's something we talked about multiple times throughout this podcast. And the other part is giving those resources. What you're selling, you have to find your ideal customer profile, right? Yeah. When you know who you're going after, find their biggest pain points. For us, you might say, okay, we're a marketing agency. Our customers' biggest pain points are the lack of leads. That is so surface level. One thing, and I credit our sales director, he really taught me a lot about this. He said, your customers don't have a lead problem. Yeah. When you get on a call and you're like, hey, do you have a low amount of leads or could you get more leads? They're always going to say, yeah, we could be doing better in leads. And a lot of salespeople and a lot of people are going to attack that and they're going to say, oh, there's a problem. But you need to dig deeper. You could be like, okay, if you're currently landing 5 to 20 projects a month, what's going to happen if in a year you're still landing the same amount? And that's when the real pain points start coming out. They're going to start saying, well, if we're at 5 per month, then 6 months down the road, I think we're going to have to lay off 2 of our pretty good employees because we just won't have the salary for them. And then now you're starting to get the actual pain points. Yeah. So when you're building a personal brand in 2025, you really want to focus. You want to create that customer profile and find what's actually hurting them and provide resources. Yeah. Help them get out of that. Don't put everything behind the paywall of, hey, pay $50, make those communities. I see a lot of people that are specifically in the consulting space. A lot of them are doing the free communities of like, hey, this is just a Slack channel or a school channel where every day we want you to log on and build each other up. Yeah. Talk about your struggles, talk about what's working, or even say, hey, today I had a day where it was tough for me to push myself. Yeah. I wanted to be lazy. I wanted to not even come to work. But start with those things that are, you're giving resources to people, in the space. And I'm, like I said, that's value how my added. Company, giving that value. That's how I structured our mission and vision statement of becoming the most reputable and well-known marketing agency in the US. And that's how we're going to get there. It's not going to be, if you look at, in my specific industry, you look at marketing agencies that are local, you'll go on their website, you will see, Springfield, Missouri SEO, St. Louis, Missouri SEO, like 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 pages, just like keyword stuffing the city and the service they're providing. And then I'm like, I don't want to look at that. Let's look at the biggest marketing agencies in the US. Go on their website. You will not see one location besides like on their contact page where their headquarters are. You won't see any pages that are throwing and trying to stuff that in. what you will see is a huge resource center.
Yeah.
They will have thousands and thousands of articles that are talking about how you could build your online marketing. I'm like, okay, that's what I want to look at, right?
Yeah.
That's the way we're structuring, because one day we're going to get there and we're going to be the biggest player.
Yeah. One of my close friends has a 120 million a year marketing agency, and they do all sorts of awesome things, more so with YouTube and monetizations. And they are the third biggest one on YouTube. They get 2 billion views a month. I mean, it's crazy, their numbers they have. And I asked him a similar question, and he, like, literally what you just said is what he said. He's like, Pavel, we just love telling people how to do it. He's like, we write troubleshooting podcasts. We write blog posts on how to overcome challenges, how to register things, how to open a domain name. And one of their highest or biggest funnels was whenever they wrote a blog post on how to troubleshoot something. And now if you Google it, it's the first result thing. And it's gotten, I think at this point, billions of like views and clicks. It's extraordinary. Just give people the value. And if they can't do it on their own, or like Alex Hormozy often says, I think he says 75 or 90% of people don't want to do it on their own. They just want to pay someone to do it for them. They want to make sure what you're doing is legitimate. Going into wrapping up this podcast, it's called Suits and Shoes. I had a vision of sharing not only what it's like to be in someone's shoes, what's it like to be in someone's clothes, but actually what are they wearing? And I've always been inspired by a majority of the answers that I get is summarized into one quote. It's not the clothes that define us, it's us that define the clothes. And I always wondered, for my go-to shoes, I've always wondered, like, why doesn't Nike make dress shoes? And then I found the brand Cole Haan, which got acquired by Nike. And I wear them every day, man. It's like literally dress shoes in the form of tennis shoes, most comfortable shoes ever. Very cost effective, non-flashy, none of that CG logos on it. What is your approach to clothing, and what is your go-to outfit day to day?
For the most part, what you see, I love wearing quarter zips with just like a polo under them. I am honestly, what you said, I really stand by. But people also make first impressions. So like if I'm traveling, I remember early on when I used to get on flights, I would just wear like more comfortable slacks or sweats or jeans. But when what I noticed is, when you wear, and I'm not the person who comes, those people come in a 3-piece suit sitting in the plane. No, I'm not that. But like if you're coming in, if you look presentable to people, you give that first impression as well, and you establish like, hey, this is someone who's takes care of his even outwardly appearance. And something my parents used to say is, I remember when I was young, I had trouble keeping my room clean at all times. I always had that one chair that had a lot of stuff on it. And my parents would always drive the point home to like, the way you keep your surroundings, the way you present yourself is a reflection of who you are. And having like and I see that being true, like even going to visit some clients and going to their factories, like I come here, it is very organized, very clean. It's a beautiful building, by the way. And then you come to some where I would say a lot of them are like mechanic shops. So you see some of the American mechanic shops where they have like the white floors, they have the mats under every vehicle. And you come to sometimes like this Slavic person who's going to, change your tires or do this, and you can't step anywhere.
Right.
You wonder how your car is going to fit in that garage. And to me, that's always like, hey, it's your reflection, like your environment that you're in, it reflects on you. Like if you're in an environment that's messy, that's not well kept, how are you going to be able to have clarity, like in your mindset, as you're working? So like in our office, we have it where every day we tidy up all our desks. Every week, even though we have cleaners come and clean our office every day, once a week, we do it on our own, our way, the real, actual deep clean way. And I think it reflects. I think in the long run, it plays a role on your mindset, especially. So that's kind of how
That's amazing. Just to clarify, you're not showing up Monday morning in sweatpants and a bro tank to work, even though you're the marketing agency.
I am not.
That's amazing.
Even though, and sometimes I show up to work on my own, and sometimes I'm coming in for like a 11 p.m. Actually, now that I have an exact example I could give you that was literally less than a month ago. We launched a lot of our clients' website like Friday at 11 p.m., 12 a.m., or even later, to have like that downtime where there's less traffic and, in case something does go wrong, our team could get on top of it. So we had a launch scheduled, and it's 11:30 p.m. I'm driving out of my house to head to the office to conduct. It was a big launch. Usually our team handles it, but this was a large client, so I wanted to make sure it went smoothly. And I put on this similar outfit, and I come to work. I'm walking into our office, and we're in a building where there's multiple tenants on our floor. And I come up to the 5th floor, and I open the elevator, and to my surprise, there's someone right there. Someone's also working at this time. And we start a conversation. He's like, are you doing the photo shoot right now? What's going on? No, I know we're just doing we're just doing a client launch. So, oh, for what? I'm like, well, we just built out a new website for one of our clients, and we're getting ready to launch it. He's like, hold on, I need a website.
Boom.
He's like, I'm in this space, and he's like, could we talk? I'm like, yes, let's talk, but I have to go do this. So I gave him my card, and we just onboarded him like 2 weeks ago, actually. So to me, that's a prime example of almost like saying you never know. Yeah. Like if that's the way you make it a habit of always looking presentable to people, you don't know who you'll run into.
Yeah, I mean, it builds off of your personal brand, and you never get a second chance to make a first impression.
That's a good quote.
Yeah, business cash is definitely the way to go. All right, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in for another episode here on Suits and Shoes. You know what to do. You can continue to support us by subscribing, commenting in the comment sections your thoughts. Maybe you had some questions. In addition, if you feel like you know someone that really needs to hear this podcast, please share it with them. And then lastly, if you go pavelbosovik.com or just punch into Google Suits and Shoes or Pavel Bosovik, you're able to connect with me on my website. If you want to be featured on this podcast, or you know someone's got a unique story that can really inspire someone else, please reach out to us. Let's get them on this podcast and let's share their story with the world. Godspeed.